What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. The Chinese military is experiencing some major problems, at least according to Lay's Real Talk. 232k views 4 days ago, the crisis rocking Xi Jinping's military. Now, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, trade tariffs, all that kind of stuff. China and the US have been at it for over a decade now, trade wars, and now they're really retaliating against each other. It just keeps going up and up. You know, the percentages of the tariffs. I like the Winnie the Pooh in the background here. Not sure if that's a reference to Xi Jinping. He hates Winnie the Pooh. Let's see what Lei has to say.
So we're talking about 1,300 PLA officers caught in an internal loyalty crisis. So what is Xi Jinping going to do with them? Apparently, he's caught in a dangerous dilemma and hasn't made up his mind yet. While CCP politics has always been a black box operation, it has become as opaque and impenetrable as ever. But there is never a dull moment in the brutal high-stakes game of power. Just a day ago, Professor Yuan Hongbin, a Chinese dissident living in Australia who has connections with CCP princelings, revealed information he obtained from Beijing. First of all, he said the massive military purges are all tied to the downfall of Admiral Miao Hua, who was once a trusted confidant of Xi Jinping. Now, Miao Hua's removal and investigation were announced last fall. According to information obtained by Professor Yuan, Miao fell into a semi-deranged state after coming under investigation. He reportedly worked around the clock without rest, frantically writing detailed tell-all reports. In one instance, within just 24 hours, he implicated more than 80 senior officers in acts of political disloyalty toward Xi Jinping. Miao is being investigated with his 3 secretaries simultaneously. Together, they have now accused and implicated over 1,300 officers, both active duty and retired ones.
Jesus, that is a serious crisis, isn't it? 1,300 officers are implicated in this.
Alleging that all of them made statements or engaged in behavior deemed politically disloyal to Xi. Now, as the former head of the political work department of the CMC, Miao Hua was responsible for the political vetting and promotion of officers across all levels of the PLA, meaning that he knew almost every senior figure in the military. And among those exposed by Miao are high-level officials, including but not limited to He Weidong, Vice Chairman of the CMC, Dong Jun, the Minister of Defense, Lin Xiangyang, Commander of the Eastern Theater Command, Wang Haijiang, Commander of the Western Theater Command, Wang Houbin, Commander of the Rocket Force, Wang Chunning, Commander of the Armed Police, Wang Xiubin, former Commander of the Southern Theater Command, Qin Shutong, former political commissar of the Army, Yuan Huazhi, former political commissar of the Navy, and Zhao Keshi,
Hi there.
former minister of the Logistics Support Department, and nearly 100 generals and lieutenant generals.
Those are some big boys, big players in the Chinese military, aren't they? That's looking bad, right? Let me know in the comments below what you think. At this stage of the video, let me know if you think that's looking pretty bad. I did notice that she said that they've been implicated for some kind of political, leaning away from Xi Jinping, but there wasn't really much explanation there. And sometimes I think people can implicate others based on that fact without really any evidence or something. So I'd like to know what you guys think in the comments below. You can manufacture these things, you know what I mean?
Both active and retired ones, from across various theater commands and military branches. Additionally, Miao's revelations reportedly implicate many officials from CCDI, the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection. He has implicated many officials in that organization who had past working relations with him. So in total, Miao Hua and his 3 secretaries have implicated nearly 1,300 officers. This has overwhelmed their investigators. The investigation team from the CCDI and the Military Discipline Inspection Commission is experiencing difficulty in handling all the charges. They have run out of hands. They need people. So with Xi Jinping's approval, Li Xi, the head of CCDI, has arranged to have pre-trial investigators from the Ministry of Public Security, the Ministry of State Security, and China's top prosecutor's office join the investigation team handling Miao Hua's case. Now, Miao Hua, as well as the large number of officers he exposed, all belong to Xi Jinping's personal faction, the so-called Xi's army. So what disloyalty problem did these 1,300 officers specifically have?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering just a little bit earlier. What exactly political dissidence, what does that mean? So hopefully we're going to find out.
That have prompted this massive scale of investigation or purging. Can you take a guess? Well, it's related to the potential war over Taiwan. Although these officers rose through the ranks after Xi came to power, and many were personally promoted by Xi, when it comes to the Taiwan Strait War, they have shown themselves to be double-faced. So on the surface, they appear to support Xi Jinping's strategic decision for a war over Taiwan, but in private, they share the same view as that of another fallen general, General Liu Yazhou, who is the son-in-law of a former Chinese president. So Liu Yazhou, who is also the famed PLA strategic thinker, argued that a large-scale war over Taiwan would require a commander of great strategic vision and talent, something Xi Jinping fundamentally lacks. General Liu said that Xi Jinping doesn't possess the wisdom nor courage to lead China's military in a decisive showdown against a US-Japan-Taiwan coalition. If such a war were to break out, he warned that an incompetent commander-in-chief would exhaust and doom the entire military. These remarks were one of the reasons General Liu Yazhou ultimately met with misfortune. He is reportedly given a suspended death sentence. Okay.
What a serious business, isn't it? Just for speaking out against Xi Jinping. A suspended death sentence. Wow. I have heard that he is a bit of a yes man. Like everyone around him in his inner circle. There's a lot of smart people in his inner circle, by the way, but many of them fear him. So they just basically tell him what he wants to hear instead of telling him the truth. I don't know how true that is or not, but that is what I've heard, and this video is supporting that evidence.
So back to Miao Hua. So Miao Hua also revealed that a significant number of senior PLA officers have recognized that if Xi Jinping insists on launching a war over Taiwan, the likelihood of PLA being defeated by a US-Japan-Taiwan coalition is far greater than their chance of victory. Consequently, high-ranking officers have made escape plans. They have secretly used cryptocurrency to transfer assets.
Cryptocurrency has been banned, I think it's 7 or 17 times over the last decade, by the way. So China doesn't like the crypto stuff.
Overseas. So according to Professor Yuan's contact in Beijing, Miao Hua's massive wave of confessions and accusations is tantamount to putting Xi Jinping on the grill. He is torn. If Xi Jinping uses this as justification to launch a Stalin-style bloody purge of the military, it would inevitably decimate the very Xi loyalist faction he spent 12 years building. For Xi Jinping, it would be equivalent to destroying his own base, and the act is suicidal. However, if he doesn't carry out a sweeping purge and allows this widespread two-faced disloyalty to persist within his military, that's also debilitating to his leadership, and it's intolerable, right, to him, to someone as deeply suspicious as Xi Jinping. Remember last week I showed you Xi Jinping's hair appeared visibly gray when he made public appearances in Guizhou and Yunnan? According to Professor Yuan, Miao Hua's explosive confession and revelations have caused emotional trauma to Xi Jinping, and his hair turned gray overnight. It is said, according to Professor Yuan, that Cai Qi has reportedly been tasked with discreetly leaking information to media individuals in the US. The leak which revealed that figures like He Weidong have been suspended and placed under investigation, is to test the international community's reaction, as well as to gauge domestic tolerance for the successive cases of political disloyalty within Xi's inner circle. So basically, the fact that, all these rumors that are all of a sudden came out, they're being heard overwhelmingly in the past 2 weeks from multiple sources. It, according to Professor Yuan, came from Xi Jinping himself. The purpose is to test people's reaction and people's tolerance for the massive scale of political disloyalty in his inner circle.
I mean, that does sound like a crisis, doesn't it, for the Chinese military? Let me just unpause this and get a more
and based
a nicer face for Lei. So 1,300 officers. There was a bunch of them listed in the video. Many of them are very high up. I'm sure that there's a lot more out of those 1,300. So it seems like a lot of the higher ups, their political dissidence is just the fact that they're not sure Xi Jinping has the capability to lead China into a successful war that they can win with Taiwan against the US, Japanese, Taiwan coalition, which would inevitably involve the EU and Australia, Canada, a bunch of other countries as well. Korea maybe as well, maybe perhaps some countries in Southeast Asia. A lot of different countries will be involved in this. I don't know if Xi Jinping, I don't really know what he's going to do, to be honest. If you think about it, since he's surrounded by people that fear him and only tell him what he wants to hear, it seems like the information he gets is never really true. And so he's been building this military capability and this governmental system and building China into this world superpower under the information that's false, essentially. Right now, in terms of China's military, it's very strong, it's very powerful, but they don't really have a lot of experience when it comes to actually fighting a war. So even if Xi Jinping, is even if he does have the capability, I'm not even so sure that they can take Taiwan by force. It's very difficult to invade an island country. It's very difficult to invade Australia or the UK or Japan, for example, or even the US, which is surrounded by oceans. There's no other world powers on the same continent. It's very difficult, even though Taiwan's very close to China. So even with great commandership from Xi Jinping, I think it's going to be a big task. And if he's got 1,300 officers who all are speaking behind his back saying that he's just not capable of doing it, it means that firstly they just don't believe that they can win a war anyway. But also I wonder if they have someone else in mind that could lead China into a successful military incursion into Taiwan where they actually win. I don't see them winning at all, to be honest. The only way I can imagine China would be able to take Taiwan, without totally destroying it, of course, is with like blockades and things like that. Anyway, I'm not a military expert or commander. It's just from reading lots of books on China and having studied it in university. So let's see what the comments have to say. PIA hasn't had any battlefield experience. Yeah, exactly like I said. Disastrous war with Vietnam in 1979. Yeah, I mean, China's been at war with Vietnam for thousands of years. They always got their arse handed to them. That's 47 years ago. Yet its generals have medals pinned on their dress uniforms from their waist up their shoulders. Simply hilarious. They probably buy their medals from Temu, just like their military hardware. Paper tigers, all of them. Yeah, I mean, I'm not super familiar with the hardware. I know they've got some aircraft carriers and things like that, but just lack of experience with aircraft carriers make them difficult to use in a war, whereas the US have war experience. The US have been at war for ever since I was a little boy, to be honest. When your generals and military leaders are secretly smuggling assets out of the country in preparation of conflict, the war is already lost. Yeah, they already have an escape plan. It sounds like that's what the political dissidents, or that's like at least what they've uncovered so far. They're buying crypto, they're looking to escape. Soldiers must be loyal to country, not to Xi Jinping. Yeah, that's true. 2,600 kidneys coming into the market. Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen to these 1,300 officers. The CPC is crumbling internally and Trump just poured gas on the fire. Yeah, I'm certain that the tariffs do not help right now with what's going on. They're just getting bombarded with all these problems. Thanks for showing this. It's not too often I hear something about things happening behind the scenes in China. Yeah, it's very difficult to get information out of China, to be honest, other than what they want you to hear. The CCP has had so many missteps in recent decades. Can you imagine where China would be had the CCP not imposed the one-child policy? Look at China's aging population. You need people to staff the military. You need people to produce goods and services. what's left of younger generations are burned out. Yeah, I mean, they're building robots and things like that, but where are the jobs going to go? People aren't going to be able to work in China, and unless they have some kind of huge governmental program where they look after their people, I don't know what jobs people are going to have in China with all the robots. Let it rot. It's no surprise to anyone. It would be wonderful to see China as a democracy get the heavy hand of communist government off the throat of innovation and enterprise, not to speak of a much happier people. So, yeah, guys, let me know what you think about the crisis that's rocking Xi Jinping's military. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.